All right, story time, story time, story time. So, I am going to tell you about some of the worst experiences I've had at record stores. Yes, it happens. And luckily for me, it hasn't happened a whole lot. But, like, not a lot at all. I can only think really of three situations where I just didn't feel like I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel cool about what was going on, and I want to tell you guys about it. Okay, so here's three experiences that I've had. Three of the worst experiences that I've ever had in a record store. All right, so first store I'm going to talk about. It's actually a chain out here in the Arizona area. It's called Zia Records. Zia Records, there's like, I don't know, five locations here in Phoenix. There's one in Tucson, and I believe there's still two in Las Vegas. Now, this Zia experience isn't as bad as, some other experiences, but let me just tell you my experience with Zia. Uh, I first came to visit Phoenix in 1997, and I went to a Zia that was located on 7th Avenue in Osborne. Okay, so Zia, the best way I could describe Zia back in those days is a record Goodwill for the most part. They didn't carry like new items, not unless it was like some promo item, but back in those days they weren't ordering like new product from, any distributors or anything like that. It was just basically, for the most part, all used records and CDs for the most part. They had a little bit of other things, but for the most part, records, CDs, the whole store used. Now, what was beautiful and lovely about that time period is that every 12-inch in that store, every 12-inch was 99 cents. It didn't matter what it was 99 cents. Every album in the store was between 99 cents and $1.99. Every one. And a lot of their albums, they would re-shrink, if you will. So sometimes it would throw you off because you'd be like, yo, I remember grabbing this Al Green album, and I remember that it was shrink wrapped, but the price sticker that was on there was on the other side of the shrink wrap. And I think I realized, I don't remember if I bought that or not, but at some point I realized, oh, it's a used record. They just, reshrinked it. If they had an album, I guess if they considered it to be rare or expensive or anything like that, it was $3.99. It was $3.99, and I never saw an album in there uh, that was any more than $3.99 at the time. Let me turn my phone off if I can. Okay, sorry. So every album was $3.99. So it was a beautiful situation. It was a beautiful situation. Now at that particular location, there the manager in there was this dude named Days. His real name was Mark. We all called him Days. That was like his nickname. So like half the people he knew a lot of people. So half the people he knew, or half the people that knew him as Mark. The other half knew him as Days. So a lot of us would just call him Mark Days because we didn't know who we was. Anyway, when Mark was managing that store, this was a few years later. Now you fast forward, maybe 2, 3 years later, and Mark was a hip hop head, and he was buying these collections The prices by that time had went up a little, but he was buying these collections, this rap music collections, these rap and R&B collections, and he was buying so much that he didn't have any more room in his store. You would go in there and the whole back room was filled. There was crates that were like taped up, wrapped up underneath the shelves that you couldn't really get to. He was buying like crazy, and it was some of the most incredible rap and R&B music out there at the time. And a lot of it was like 90s stuff, like early 90s stuff, early mid 90s, all of that classic rap music from back then. And I remember I would go in there and I would be like, can I go through this stuff? And Mark would be like, he'd be like, yeah, you can go through it, but it's going to take me a while before I can actually price it. So I set them aside. When I price them, I'll give you a call. So I would grab these big stacks of records, like stacks like this many records, or 1, 2, 3 stacks like that at times. And he'd call me like a day or two later. And I'm talking 12 inches and full LPs. He say, come down, I got the stuff priced out. And I'd just be like, ugh, I wonder how much is this going to break me or whatever. Because anyway, I go down there and he'd have different stacks. He'd have like maybe 3, 4 stacks. And he'd be like, this stack, $1, this stack, $2, this stack, $3, this stack. And that was like dirt cheap. That was almost like giving them away. And this was if you go into a Zia right now, it's like they sell everything. They sell instruments and movies and toys and t-shirts and books, novels and comics, and they sell some of everything in there. Candy and video games and all of that kind of stuff, studio equipment. It's some of everything in there right now. And their prices are like top dollar in there. So when Days was in there, his prices were so good that store was the best record store in the entire city. It was incredible. You don't usually give a chain the title of being the best, because chains are, they're chains, they're commercial, they're not that type of place. But in that time, this is early 2000s, nobody in this city was touching them. Nobody. It was simply incredible. They would get these brand new promo copies of albums in 12 inches, and they would go right into the 99-cent bins. I pulled out so much heat over there, stuff you wouldn't believe. I remember going in there and finding like 6, 7 copies of that first and second Aunt Banks album, promo, 99 cents. I remember going in there and seeing the Roots. What album was that? It was the album that the Roots released after the Illadelph album. I can't remember what album that was. Anyway, they would be in there for $1.99. And they'd be like 10 or 12 of them. So they would get this promo stuff, and they'd be like, and this was still in the era where these businesses, these record stores were not really messing with rap music like that. You know what I mean? Like, get it out of here. We don't know a whole lot about this stuff. It wasn't, there was no Discogs or Pop Psych or, Jim. No places that you could like look this stuff up and see, what it might be worth. That stuff was non-existent. So it was incredible. It was a great era. So right around 2007, 2008, 2009, somewhere in there is when, like, literally overnight, boom, the prices shot up. All of those records that you would normally, all those promo records you would normally find for 99 to $1.99, they all shot up to like $8, $8, $9 a copy. And when that happened, some of those records sat in there for like the next 10 years before, I guess, they just got rid of them. I don't know what they did with them, but that stuff, nobody was paying that. The jump was so vast that people pretty much ignored it. And then right around, I would say right around 2010, somewhere in there, uh, a lot of, they just were not good at pricing. They were horrible at pricing stuff. They were horrible at, and this is to this day, they're horrible at pricing. They're horrible at identifying certain records. You know what I mean? And I remember I went to the Tempe store and Dennis Coffey Hearing Things album. This was during the time, like right around 2010, somewhere up in there, where all of these, they started reissuing all of these classic and or rare albums from like the 60s and 70s. Like all of these reissues was just coming out from everywhere, and they averaged around $12 for a reissue album back then. And I remember they had that Dennis Coffey album in there, and at the time that was like a $200-300 record. They had a price at $95. So this one kid is in there, and I'm looking at this record, and I go, "Hey, you know this is a reissue, right?" And he goes, "No, no, no. That's an original pressing, and that's a really good price for that album." I go, "No, it's a reissue." He's like, "No, that's original. That's a rare one." And one of the ways you can tell, do I have an example around here? One of the ways that you can tell right away a reissue from an original is, first of all, the sleeves, the inner sleeves. Some of the old ones had like writing and pictures on the inner sleeve, and the reissues don't have that. They'll just have a white sleeve. Now, if you notice back in the day, a lot of the sleeves were square, like this, like square. And then I don't know if you can see it on here, but this paper is so old, it's got like a tan tint to it. See how that looks like an off-white, like a tan, almost like a light brown? Well, the newer sleeves, are rounded around here. It kind of fits the record a lot closer. They're not square, and then they're like bone white. And this record, and then the inside, like, let's say this album had, it had the round inner sleeve, and then if you look on the inside, this record is actually, this is from the 80s, but this is mint condition. This is mint. But a lot of the reissues, the inside, or the old ones, the paper will be an off-white and a brown inside too. And then the reissues, they're new, so they're completely white, crisp, pristine, the whole 9 yards. So, like, these people don't know what they're doing. Plus, I knew this chick who worked there, and she worked at the Chandler store, and she would even tell me, she was like a manager out there, one of the managers, and she would be like, "No, they don't know what they're doing. The stuff that they let walk out of the door is crazy." And I would see other records, like there's a record, an African rock record that came out. It had never been released before, but they went and found all these recordings. The group was called Wells Fargo, and it was literally like an African rock band from the 60s, I believe. 60s, maybe early 70s. I'm not actually sure. But I had wanted that record. They had one. This record had just been released. I think it was out maybe 6 months, maybe no more than 6 months. They had one on the wall, and it was like 40 dollars. They had it priced at on the wall. I think it was 45 dollars. You could go online at the same time, buy that same record, brand new, sealed, and have it shipped to you, and it was like $23, 22, $23. They got the same record on the wall for $40, like it's because they would put their rare records on the wall and all that. They didn't know what they were doing. And so I used to shop in there. I've shown a lot of records on this channel that I got in there that I got for a great price. And I used to hit that place weekly. One of them in the city, I'd hit them weekly. But when those prices shot up, I cut my visits down about 99%. Now I'll stop in there every now and then if I happen to be passing by one. And I stop in just to see what fell through the cracks. Because stuff does fall through the cracks. You will go in there and you will find something. You'll be like, oh, somebody made a mistake on this. This is a $75 45. They got it in a 99-cent bin. Or this 12-inch goes for $120, and it was in the clearance stuff for $1.99. So that stuff still happens, but at the same time, you will find what I call dollar records that I have seen 100 times in the dollar bins, or from $1 to $3. They got priced at $39.99, like just ridiculously expensive. So, and I understand that things change. They order all new stuff now. They have all of that stuff, all of the record store. That's great. No problem. People, you got to do what you got to do. But I'm just saying, for me, there's really no reason for me to go in there anymore. But like I said, I stop in every now and then, see what falls through the cracks. And, I'm a reseller too. So I found some stuff that I've sold for 20, 30 times more than what I actually paid for it. So that's that. So not really throwing out a diss. Well, yeah, I guess I am. To you people at Zia who don't know how to price stuff, you're overpricing stuff and you're wondering why it's sitting in that store forever and a day, you get the gas face. There, a couple years ago, they were set up at a record show, and there was a woman. One of the people that was setting up was a woman who was there. She had been there at the time, she had been there for like 14 years. And I had a nice, friendly conversation with her, and I was like, hey, you guys, like, your prices are ridiculous. Some of your prices. Not everything, but a lot of your prices are ridiculous. These albums are crazily priced. And she was like, yeah, we're not really good at pricing stuff. But they're a successful business, been around a long time. They have lots of customers, so more power to them. I just can't get with that stuff. So, yeah, that's the first one. And these stories get worse and worse. Unfortunately, that one wasn't that bad. But like I said, luckily, this doesn't happen to me. I don't experience this a whole lot. Usually, if I go into a store and their prices are so ridiculous, I just, all right, no problem. But anyway, so second store I want to talk about is in a store. They've changed names, I think, a few times, and this was years ago that I was in this store. It was in Whittier, California, and at the time it was called Nerd Boy Records. Now I've seen, I guess it's a California stores. A lot of the stores out there, they have some like really good stock. Some, not all of them, but some of them are like, got some serious records, serious collections, and some good stuff in there. And this one, I had only been there once ever. I went in there. It was called Nerd Boy Records at the time. And there were two guys in there. And one was a young guy, looked like maybe he was in his mid 20s. And I'm assuming the other guy was an older guy. And he was, I'm assuming he was a relative. I'm not sure. But he was in this back room because they had a counter. And then behind the counter, there was like a door. And then he, like a room, a door. And he was like inside of the door, like sitting at a table, you know. So I remember going around, full of records in there. I remember going around and looking, and these prices were crazy. So they had all these bins filled with records, and then under the bins there was just boxes and boxes of records. At the end of the aisles there was just boxes stacked up of records that hadn't been priced. So I was just like, I'm talking about TLC, Creep, and like Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince, Summertime, 12 inches, and they be priced at like $35. You go in a store like that, you already know, yes, this is not happening. So that wasn't really the bad or the weird part. The weird part was I was going through some of the boxes and some of the records underneath, and I just wasn't sure, okay, is all of their prices crazy or just the popular stuff or what? So I don't remember. I pulled out like 2 or 3 records, 12 inches. And I'm not sure. I don't remember what they were. They were like, it was rap music, 12 inches. And I remember going up to the counter, and I gave it to the young guy because he was the one standing up there. And I was like, how much are these? And then he was like, you know, had that look like, let me figure this out. So I go back and then I start digging. And I don't know, 10, 12 minutes go by. And I'm just waiting. Tell me what these records are, and so I can get a gauge of what you're selling stuff for, so I know if I should continue or not. Anyway, so I go back to the counter, and I'm just like, yeah, how much are those? How much are those records? And he was just like, and then he turns around. I guess he's talking to the other guy, the older guy. So I go and dig some more, just wasting some time, giving him some time to figure this stuff out. And finally, I go back up there after like another 10 minutes or so, and I ask the guy, so how much are they? And then he kind of looks back at the older guy, and then he turns around to me and he says, what's your offer? I'm like, my offer, dude, how much are they? Like, how much are the records? And then he turns around and look at the old guy, and the old guy's sitting there in the chair. He's got this, you know, kind of smug look on his face or whatever. And then he said something. He gave me some price. It was ridiculous. It definitely wasn't what the records were worth. That's for sure, as far as I'm concerned. And so I went back. Oh, I grabbed them and I went and I put them back. And the guy, the young guy, he was just standing there. He wasn't moving. He was just staring right at me like, he looked like a weirdo. You know what I mean? Looked like a goofball, like a weirdo. And so then I did that, and then I just walked down the aisle, and I'm getting ready to walk out of the store. I'm leaving the store, and I'm looking around. I look back, and he's just staring at me the whole time, like I'm the weirdo, like I'm the nut job or whatever, and just staring at me. I walked out of that store. I was like, man, what just happened? Like, what just went down in there? That was like really weird. Both of them dudes was like weird, and I'm thinking like, is this a Cali thing? This can't be a Cali thing. I've been coming to Cali for years and digging and this, that, and the other thing. But I was just like, I never come back here. That was a weird experience. I was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. So I never went back in there ever. And I know that the name has changed. I don't know if it changed. I don't know if it's new owners. I have no idea. I never went back there. Don't plan on ever going back. I once saw a video in Cut Chemist on, I think it was on YouTube, when he was in there making a video, and I think he had knew the owners and had been like a regular customer in there. I'm just like, hey, more power to you. You probably got more money to spend than I do at the time anyway. So all right, so one more. You heavy diggers, especially you diggers that get to travel around the country and hit different places. You know, when you go to different major cities, you hit as many vinyl shops. Some of you guys are gonna know this next stop. Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay, so some of y'all already like, oh, here it comes. I already know what store you're talking about. Come on, let's have it. There's a store in Las Vegas called Wax Tracks. Oh my goodness. So I used to go to Vegas a couple times a year, not to gamble or nothing like that, but I had relatives there, and I would just go. You know, I would be in town for different reasons, whatever, but I would always go around digging. And Vegas used to have some incredible stores. Any of you who know Hip Hop Site uh, .com, that store was in Vegas. The Hip Hop Site was like Fat Beats on crack. Have you ever been to Fat Beats? Just imagine Fat Beats times like 5 or 10. That's what Hip Hop Site was. Probably the best store for rap vinyl ever that I've been in. I've never been in a store that was as thorough. And I went in this one store. Well, I'll mention that on another video. Anyway, so there was another store called Big B's. They were cool. They had I pulled some really cool stuff out of there. There was a store called Balcony Lights that was fantastic. These stores are gone, I think. I don't know if Big B's is gone, but I knew they had been around a while. But there was a store called Balcony Lights, and Balcony Lights, Hip Hop Site, and Big B's were all like right there. Like, two were next to each other, and the other one was right across the street. Balcony Lights was all rock and metal and all of that kind of stuff, and they had all of their R&B and rap music like in the dollar bins underneath, which was classic for like the 80s and the 90s. You would go to these record shows, and a lot of the dealers back then were, you know, these older white couples or these white rock guys, and they would have some long story short, they would have some black music, and they'd have it pushed under the table and crates under the table, boxes, and they'd all be 99 cents. So while everybody was up top, I would be down, you know, on the floor going through those dollar boxes and cleaning up. Balcony Lights, I used to clean up. I very, very rarely walked out of there with less than a crate of records that were all 99 cents. So Vegas has some great stores. They're all gone now, as far as I know. This place, Wax Tracks, is still around. Now, Wax Tracks is a house that was converted into a record store. So when you go in there, there's just all of these rooms, the lower level, all of these different rooms just filled with records. The owner, how can I say this? I want to say something vulgar, but I'm not. The owner is an ignorant, arrogant jerk. So just take that and just multiply it times 10 and then come up with your own name for that. That's who this guy was. Now, before I go any further, just to give you an idea, or after this video, go online and go look up reviews for that store. It'll tell you everything you need to know. So my experience, because I've had buddies who went in there, and their experiences were way worse than mine, like way worse. So I go in there, and the guy don't want you just browsing. He's like, what are you looking for? And then he'll kind of go and direct you to where, whatever. So I told him, I said, I'm looking for rap 12 inches. And he was like, oh, okay. He was like, what, are you one of those producer guys? And I'm like, no, I just like rap music. Oh, my son, he likes that stuff and this, that, and the other thing. And so he directs me to this one room, and then he starts saying, he was like, man, he starts name dropping. He Biz Markie came in here and he just cried. He couldn't believe the stuff that I had here. And Jazzy Jeff came in here and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, okay, cool. So we go into this one room, and he's like, there was this one wall that was just all of these rap 12 inches, and they were like super sardine packed. Like you couldn't even flip through. You had to like pull out a stack before you could even flip through them. And then right in the hallway, before you walk into that room, there was like some shelves, and there was like all rap albums. So he takes me into the room, and he's like, this whole wall is blah, 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 blah. Now this is where he got me. He said, I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing in this room that is less than $10. He says, if you see something that you like, bring it up to the counter, and I'll tell you how much it is. Now that's normally when I turn around and walk out with any kind of store. If I'm at any store, any flea market, garage sale, whatever, and I say, well, how much are these? How much are the t-shirts? How much are the records? How much are the DVDs? And somebody says, well, whatever you're interested in, bring it up and I'll let you know. I never do it. I just leave. I'm like, I'm not playing that game. Anyway, so he says that, and normally that's when I would have just turned around and left. I'm like, I'm not doing that. But I was like, okay, he hasn't really like dissed me. I got a buddy, he told him, hey man, you can't afford the records that I got in here. You can't even afford it. And this dude got money. You know what I'm saying? So he would say some crazy stuff to people, like, and I'll get a little bit more into that in just a second. So he goes back to the counter, and I just so I don't, like, because I'm not trying to diss him. I'm not trying to shove anything in his face, the fact that he's not going to make any business off of me. So I hung around for like maybe another 10, maybe 15 minutes. About maybe 15 minutes. I pull out like a big stack of records like this. Because like I said, they were packed so tight that you couldn't flip through. So I pull out a stack of records like this, right? And I got them in my hand, and I'm flipping through them like this. Now, keep in mind, this guy says there's nothing less than $10 in there, right? I'm Kid and Play, Vanilla Ice, Chub Rock, Salt and Pepper, a bunch of other miscellaneous stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. I got everything Kid and Play did. I got all the Salt and Pepper. I got all the Chub Rock. I got all that stuff is cool, but that stuff is not. There was nothing in there that was worth anywhere near $10, much less $10 or more. You know what I'm saying? I found all them records for a few bucks, maybe. You know what I mean? And still got all of them right now. So I'm not dissing those artists. I'm just saying none of those artists for me are worth $10 or more. So that let me know right then and there, this guy don't know what he got in here. and he don't know how to price nothing. His prices are ridiculous. So, like I said, I hung out for a few more minutes and then I just left. I never went back to that store ever again. I don't know anybody personally, like one of the homies, that ever went to that store a second time or that ever purchased anything in there at all. I think I got one buddy who was in there, yeah, for hours and hours and pulled out a stack of records this big. And when he was done, the owner wanted so much money per record that he didn't end up getting any except one record. And he feels like he overpaid for that record. But he didn't want to leave empty handed because he had spent so much time in there. That's the only person I know that ever purchased something out of there. Um, at some point after that, I went on Google and looked up the reviews. I couldn't find one good one. I couldn't find not one good review. Now there were people in there that said, "Hey, I bought this. I spent $300, $400, $500, but the records were way overpriced. I came from Europe. I came from this people all over the world. I was in Vegas. I decided to go out digging. Blah blah blah. This guy said this to me. He treated me this way. Blah blah blah." And so it's just the reviews are terrible. I wouldn't recommend anybody going there unless they want to have a negative experience. I remember this was maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Somebody, I won't say any names, but this DJ had posted, had made a posting on Instagram, and they were standing next to the guy, and I think the guy, well, they were standing next to the Wax Tracks guy, and the caption said, "Say what you want about this guy, but," so it was somebody that shops in there, I guess, regularly, and was cool with him. But they obviously, at the same time, knew what kind of person he was because they started the post off with, "Say what you want about this guy, but," basically on some, but he's a great guy, but he's got great, whatever the case may be. So we had a little back and forth, and I responded by saying, "I'm surprised somebody hasn't this guy yet." That's what I said. Because he's like, you can't go around talking to people the way this guy has talked to certain people and not get your teeth knocked out. How he managed to survive nobody getting physical with him is beyond me. Or maybe it has happened and I just don't know about. I don't know. But go check some of these reviews. The guy, he's not a nice guy. And the thing is so many people in the reviews and this person that I was talking to talking about how incredible his records are. Like, he's got this and he's got this. And I'm thinking, and the person I was going back and forth with, I started naming all of these stores in Vegas. And I was like, I've been to all of these stores. I found incredible stuff. I've been all over the country and a few times out of the country to dig. And I'm like, nobody has records that are so good, I'm willing to take some abuse for them. But they seem to, there was even people, mostly women, that were like, "Oh, well, I don't mind, guys that are feisty and this, that, or blah, blah, blah. Like, it's challenging and I don't pay attention and blah, blah, blah." And I'm just like, y'all need to get outside a little bit more. Because I wasn't in that store long, but I can't think of a record or a group of records that I would deal with abuse just so I could be overcharged for them, just so I could purchase them. I can't think of a. It would have to be something so crazy, like 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 if I found out that my parents were in a band. I really want this record. Oh, here's my mom and pop on the album cover. It would have to be something crazy for me to deal with anything like that. And man, I just thought of another place I gotta tell you guys about, so we'll make it 4. Anyway, so I just had a horrible experience in there. Like I said, go look at the reviews. They're crazy. And to the people who dealt with that stuff, get outside some more. Move around a little more. There's lots of records in a lot of places, and this guy's store was not all of that. Was not all. I didn't see anything in there that was impressive to me. Like I said, I wasn't in there long, and I was only looking for rap music at the time. He could have had some, this guy could have the most incredible, rarest jazz records ever. But guess what? I don't jump into jazz like that. So what do I care? My jazz collection consists of soothing, mellow, funky rhythms or breaks or samples or something like that. That's 95% of my jazz collection. So if you got if he has some crazy whatever kind of stuff, what do I care? I don't, if he's got the craziest heavy metal records or whatever, what do I care? I don't listen to that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that don't impress me. But as far as the stuff that I'm looking for that I did see, I didn't see anything that was remotely close to being impressive. Okay, let's move along. I just thought of this. I just thought of another example. There is a store. Oh man, I should have pulled that record out. There's a store right here in Phoenix. I think they're in Mesa. It's called Asylum Records. Asylum Records. This guy used to work at this other record store, and I can't remember. I think it was called Rockaway or something like that. He used to work at this other record store, and he worked with a buddy of mine, right? And my buddy used to tell me that this guy is a knucklehead and blah, blah, blah. He ended up getting my buddy fired from the store because he lied or whatever. Anyway, that store eventually got sold, and I think he bought that store. And then I think he renamed it. So it's called Asylum Records. So this guy pops up one day at one of the record shows. He's got some records in there, and they are ridiculously priced. So everybody's like, dude, these records are... Yeah. Oh, well, I'm just trying to bring some attention to my store. I'll be open on this date and blah, 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 blah. Whatever. Anyway, so he opens up, right? I go in there after he opens up. He only has maybe 25% of the records in the whole store price. Now, I will say this. Nice store, lot of records, some really good stuff in there. But he had stock from the other store, and my buddy was moving out of town at the time, so he had a whole bunch of his records that he couldn't sell to anybody else that he sold to this guy. And the guy also had got a hold of a whole bunch of promo stuff, right? So I only went in this store twice. So the first time I went in there, he started talking about my buddy, not knowing that we knew each other. He's telling me all this stuff like he took my buddy for a ride and got all of these great records for cheap, and got over on him and all of this stuff. And it's like, dude, I myself went through that collection like 3 times, and half of the vinyl collectors in the city has been through that collection. I didn't say this, but this is what I'm thinking. Like, you didn't get no big valuable stuff, and you didn't take advantage of anybody, but he's making it sound like this. You know what I mean? So I forgot what I pulled out of there on that first. Not a whole lot of stuff, but I remember he had these promos in the front of the store, and I had pulled out some really cool promo albums out of there, like maybe a handful. They're not priced. Most of the stuff in there is not priced. So I hand him the records, and he goes right to eBay on his computer, blah, 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 and he goes, "Oh, somebody's selling this record for $45. So I'll sell it to you for $45." And I'm like, "No, no, I'm not. No." And I tell him, I go, just because somebody's selling something for a certain price, don't mean that that's what they're getting or that's what it's being sold for. That's just what they're asking for. Then I explained to him that there was this record on Discogs at the time, and I explained this to him. It was one of those New York bootleg record. It was either New York or LA, some kind of bootleg record. I don't know if it was a compilation or if it was a mega mix type record, but there was like maybe 20 people selling this record on Discogs. The cheapest one was $10. The most expensive one at the time was $1,200. It's people selling records on there. You got two different people. The lowest is $10. The highest is $1,200. And I said, the one who's selling it for $1,200, he's gonna have that record for the rest of his life, guaranteed. If nobody's paying $10 for it, why in the world would somebody pay $1,200? So you know what that tells me? It tells me that it's not even worth $10 right now, today, because it's still up there. That one and a whole bunch of other ones. It's still up there. It's not worth that. And I'm explaining this. This guy knows it all or whatever. Whoop-de-whoop. Who cares? And then I remember pulling out some more. I give them to him. He's looking up on it, and he's like, "Oh, man." He's like, "You picked out some good stuff." I said, "Never mind. I don't want any of them." And then I left. And I think that was the first time I was in there. I went the second time. Now check this out. There's a record. I'm not going to say what the record is because I have hopes of finding this record again and again and again. But let's just say it was a local rapper who put out some vinyl in the 90s. And the 12-inch is worth a lot of money. I found it for like $1 in the past. And I decided I'm going to sell this. I put it on eBay. And I started the bidding at $1. Well, it ended up selling for $810. Some dude in Texas bought it. $810. Well, some time after that, I decided that I wanted to collect all of the Arizona rap vinyl that has ever come out. So now I really needed to find that record again. Well, I go in his store and guess what? It's in there. And obviously, like most of his stock, it's not priced. So I grabbed that, and then I grabbed doubles of this other Arizona rap record, and then I grabbed a 12-inch out of the dollar bin. So I'm thinking like, man, how am I going to get these records out of the store? He's going to look it up. He's going to see that somebody sold it for $810, and he's going to do what he does. Anyway, so I hand him the records. And I think what happened was, I don't know if it just wasn't on there. I don't know. But he obviously looked on eBay. I don't know if he didn't see it or what. But one thing he did say, he said, "Oh, these records all come from like the same area." I didn't say anything. So he grabs his little price gun and he's just like, click, 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 and he starts pricing these records. hands them back, hands them back to me, and the two doubles he had $10 price tags on them. Now at the time they were selling for about $40, so no biggie. And I was looking at that as I was just trying to buy a group of records and kind of hide this one within the records or whatever. And I hope he sees this video. Anyway, so the record, that one record, I look at that, he priced it at $8. $8. Now let me go back and say I hadn't decided to collect the Arizona records yet. So let me explain that. Anyway, so let me finish this story. So I paid him. You should have saw the look on this guy's face. The look of accomplishment. The look of getting away with the crime. I think he saw those records or something maybe, and he priced them way higher than what he thought they were actually worth, and I actually bought them. The look of triumph on his face was unbelievable. I walked out of that store. I was the winner that day. I walked out of there and I was just like, oh, what an idiot. I mean, this guy, he's not a nice dude. Anyway, I go home, I put it on eBay, and it goes up to like $500. And I'm just like, nah. I sold the last one for 800 plus. I don't want to take 500. So I forgot what, I can't remember if the guy just didn't pay me or something happened. So anyway, I just held on to it, and sometime after that, I decided I want to collect all of the Arizona rap stuff. So I ended up keeping it, and that's the copy that I have to this day. And I never went back in that store ever again. I'm like, this guy, he don't know what he doing. He don't know how to price. He's looking up everything right in somebody's face and think you're going to sell it for what the next person is trying to sell it for. Nah, he didn't have a clue. He didn't have a clue. And I could go on with some other stuff that I was trying to buy out of there, but I never went back in there. But this record that cost several $100s that you sold me for $8 and thinking you got over, well, guess what? Yeah, that's how it goes down. So, yeah, those are my experiences, or some of the worst experiences that I've had in record stores, even though this last one, I ended up coming out on top with that one. But I still never went back in that store ever again. So, yeah, what are some of your worst experiences? Please share them down in the comments. I would love to hear about them and where they were and what some of these shops were. It's almost just under an hour, man. Thanks for hanging out with me this long. I hope all of you guys stuck around and I hope you dug these crazy experiences, the great adventures of Daryl D. And I'll see you next time on Daryl D TV. Till then, be safe, peace, and love.